am Jay Weidner, and you are listening to the Smoke and Mirrors Radio Hour. We're heard every Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific Time, repeated on the AM at the same time, and we're heard all around the world. You can hear us on the web at smokeandmirrorsradio.net, at sacredmysteries.com, jayweidner.com, lots of places to hear us. And we've had a lot of interesting shows here, and we're going to have a lot of interesting shows coming. I've got Joseph Farrell tomorrow night, who is the Oxford-educated expert on the Nazi technology that the U.S. brought into the United States at the end of World War II. And he's going to have a lot of very shocking things, I think, to tell us. And I'm going to get it out of him anyway. Anyway, we're, as you know, we are trying to present on this show a more positive view of what's going on because there's so much negativity going on. And even though we do dwell into the negative occasionally, just because we want to keep things balanced, we also would like to keep things a little bit positive, because what's the point of living if we're all just going to die in some horrible calamity, which is right around the corner because the economy is going to hell and we're all going to be starving or whatever they're trying to tell us nowadays. So tonight I brought in my good friend Rick Levine, who's an astrologer, a really good astrologer. A lot of people are like, oh, no, not an astrologer. But Rick has such a great view of astrology that it's extremely user-friendly. And so, without further ado, I will bring him on. Rick, are you there?
I am here.
He is here. I am.
The illusion of me is here.
The Maya version of Rick is here. So, Rick, tell us about your StarIQ site to begin with, because it's a great site. I'm looking at it right now.
Well, StarIQ is actually a feeder site. We do have some weekly columns, and it does carry my daily horoscope column, which is also published by Tarot.com. And it is allegedly the most widely read daily horoscope column in the world. It appears on the home page of Google, iGoogle, MySpace, AOL, and hundreds of other sites. But StarIQ not only carries my daily column, but we carry weekly columns from a few very high-quality astrologers, and we try to represent astrology as it is rather than as the public often gets it. And if there's a subject that has a wider difference between what the actual study is and how people perceive it, I don't know of anything that's a greater difference than that in astrology.
Well, I agree with that. So I put you on, and I like to always try to give you as much support as possible, because you have a great way of explaining a subject that almost no one really gets. Everyone thinks that astrology is about forecasting something that happens to you on a daily basis, like, you're going to meet a girl today, or you're going to have a Starbucks tonight or something. But you take a different view. You have what we call, based on your book and your video, and by the way, Rick's video is available at sacredmysteries.com, quantum astrology, which is about how time moves in these large cycles, and how you can measure these cycles more or less through events that are played out. And you really have to see the video or read Rick's book to really get what he's saying. But it's really quite amazing, and it fits in with one of the themes of this show. And one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is what is called the fourth turning. I don't know if you've read that book or not, but The Fourth Turning is a great book about generational change and how about every 85 years in America we go through a tremendous blow-up. 85 years ago, of course, was the Great Depression. 85 years before that was the Civil War, and 85 years before that was the Revolution. And now we're at the precipice of this Fourth Turning, probably the greatest, most difficult crisis that we've probably ever faced in this country. And I'm wondering, what's your take on what's going on around us right now?
Well, yeah. There are many cycles within cycles, and astrology is merely one way. It's a particularly good way, but it's merely one way to look at some of these larger scale cycles. Incidentally, for those listeners who are astrologically astute, they will recognize immediately that the planet Uranus takes about 85 years to make one complete journey around the sun. And Uranus is the planet astrologically that symbolizes revolution. It symbolizes abrupt change. Uranus is the future. It is,
I had no idea.
And so, Uranus is exactly an 84-year cycle. But whenever you deal with large rhythms, the idea of being exact to our measurement is kind of a funky, anthropomorphic kind of a thing, because nature doesn't work on exact rhythms. Resonance kind of jumps to whatever the nearest closest rhythm is. And from that standpoint, as you unfolded the Depression and the Civil War and the American Revolution, I'm thinking, that if you look at America's birth chart, Uranus is coming around for the fourth time to where it was when the United States was born, which is just like any human being, And incidentally, when we reach our Uranus return as humans, what happens to us? We have a second childhood.
Yeah, my father's reaching it right now, in fact.
Yeah, 84, 85 is the Uranus return, and it changes. It's different. It's weird. And Uranus is the planet that's weird. And we'll come back to Uranus in a few minutes, I hope, when we talk a little bit more about the details of what these changes are that are upon us right now, because the planet Uranus is playing a very, very important role in a scenario that we're hearing described from many points of view, whether they are from native points of view, whether they are from the Mayan point of view, whether they are from the point of view of Time Wave Zero, Terence McKenna's work that I know you're very familiar with. Regardless of where we look, people are saying the same thing. And unlike the Y2K scenario, let's say fiasco, unlike that, this particular transformation, this fourth turning, or however you want to phrase it, that is certainly being aimed at the 2012 date, but I think it's more complicated and longer, wider spread than a one-day thing. But the fact of the matter is that the astrological cycles right now are corroborating this. This is not a non-event. I know that was a double negative. Unlike Y2K, we are actually going through something that is highly significant from an astrological point of view, but you don't need to be an astrologer to know that.
Yeah, we had Carl Kalaman, who's really quite an interesting Mayan scholar, on last Friday. And he was talking about there's these 9 steps that we'll be taking, and we've just passed this. No, we're going to be moving into the 6th step of these 9 steps leading up to the end of the long count